Hi, welcome. On this video, as part of my series called Flipping the Script, going to be responding to this narrative that is being put forward in the confused and compromised balanced dog training community by way of rewarding bad behavior to create good behavior. And on this video put out by one of these trainers who's marketing this narrative, Larry Krohn. We've been playing some of this video, but to put this in the proper context, and again, like always, I always go to the parenting example to help people understand the problem by way of this very popular idea that trains a learning-based exercise, which is superficial in the way that it motivates dogs to respond in the middle of a relationship problem. The problem with lack of depth in terms of even certain moments that are being misinterpreted as though perception of changing of dogs without, again, understanding. I talk about the core ingredients, influence and control being part of the process itself to both reveal in terms of the current state of relationship, but also change in terms of dogs as social animals. So again, I'm going to play just part of this video here, based again on this narrative that is being marketed by many in the dog training world.
Think it's stupid, okay? And this goes against that statement. That's what I'm trying to get to. I very often use a clicker to mark and reward unwanted behaviors. Goes against everything that you're supposed to do, right? I very often use a clicker and mark unwanted mindsets in the dog. I mark and reward that. Things that we don't want. Again, goes against everything that's supposed to be done, right? And I'll give you some examples. And I've done this in front of people at workshops, at seminars, and so everyone always questions it, and when they see the impact it has on a lot of these dogs, they're like, okay, incredible.
So here, I want to, again, I'll stop it here. I'm going to keep playing some more of this here in a moment as it goes into some of these examples. But again, the way you want to frame this up, okay, and again, this is really important because this is what gets people into trouble, okay? Understand that people who invest in this idea of things, who look at certain moments and assume that those moments represent good things are happening. And this goes right into, at the very beginning, in terms of the jumping in point for those who identify as balanced and force-free dog trainers, who at the very beginning of a relationship problem, once the dog's already gained control in the relationship within the training environment itself, motivate dogs to respond, by way of the sit, the down, the come, the stay, the kind of cookie cutter, picture that's being painted within the framework of response, without considering why those responses would be problematic, okay, based on the inherently flawed assumptions trainers are making, absent, okay, the core ingredients I talk about, influence and control. This is why, again, I talk about the parent example, what's revealed in certain moments with a parent-child interaction where a parent is putting a demand on the child to pick up their toys because you're the parent versus, pick up your toys and here's a brand new Xbox game. But then, layer this up or add to this whole type of example, the child is already selfish. And then if you're using that as your jumping in point to define change, well, that's a major problem. Okay, because it doesn't even connect. It doesn't connect in the way, again, in terms of those responses themselves, in terms of, the parental role, the parenting style itself, the themes I talk about. And so those responses are, absent, not just the core ingredients, absent, being connected, okay, in terms of the parent and the themes I talk about, interacting with the child in meaningful ways. And, I talk about, rules and boundaries, parental influence, demand. You can start to understand why it is, again, there's so many dog owners. I understand this is part of it's like a package deal. This goes along with in the dog training world. Dogs moving around in the training environment for treats, for something they want, only to discover after you got your certificate and gone back into the real world, back into your home environment, the relationship hasn't actually gotten any better. Okay, you're still dealing with all these behavioral issues that haven't gone away. And then what happens is the trainers, what do? They blame the dog. Oh, there's something wrong with the dog. Give it more time. All the excuses start. And it's happening so much because all these trainers are tied into this process, this idea of things that way. Because so consider just the amount of trainers, balanced and force free, they're all doing this. And then it seems normal that there must be something wrong with the dog. Well, no, it's actually inherent to the dog training world. This is a problem from the beginning. So this plays into this type of narrative. The rewarding bad behavior to create good behavior. That doesn't even make sense. Of course, it's contradictory. Of course, people are going to question and say, "What?" Because again, staying on the parenting example. The example I use again, the role of influence. Intercepting. Okay, stinking thinking, as I call it, the role of influence by way of as controls manifesting versus changing focus. We'll talk about this because this really plays into this whole thing with a certain moments. So consider a child who's mouthing off at the parent, like very disrespectful, just going off, and parent standing there in front of them, and then just like out of nowhere, the parent takes a chocolate bar out of their back pocket and holds it up to the side, and the child suddenly starts immediately their attention is drawn, their focus changes to the chocolate bar, and in that moment they're not mouthing off anymore because they want the chocolate bar. But ask yourself the question, okay, the focus changed, but does that represent that by default, by way of those moments, that the relationship, that you can trust those moments as representing that the child's attitude's changing? Well, of course not. I mean, engaging in bribery, the child's selfish, and then you're using something like a motivating agent to change focus. And understand this is exactly what this narrative represents. Rewarding bad behavior, create good behavior. Like you talk about the mindset, focus. Well, you got treats in your hand, right? And you're playing into those narratives, those themes I talk about: bribery, accommodation, and negotiation. It's just like, sure, you can bribe a selfish child to get along with their peers in a certain moment. Quarterbacking as a parent doesn't mean that those moments are, represents that the child's attitude is actually getting better. But see, that's how those moments are packaged up by many trainers. And then think about why it is you don't go in and you see video content a certain way. You don't see, because it's how they're marketing those moments, right? They're leading people to believe certain things. And who are buying into this? Well, people that have a high emotional connection with their dog, they're like, wow, this is great, because it feeds into all that. But then coming out on the other side of it, right? Wondering why is the relationship hasn't gotten any better? Well, of course it hasn't gotten any better. But understand this is how the dog training world is built. Okay, dogs being blamed happens all the time.
Let's talk about first dog. I've talked about this dog before. Lady insists on driving down from northern New England with her German Shepherd that doesn't stop barking. Okay?
So you're talking about barking. Control manifesting. Okay, understand. Express state.
Calls. It's been to other trainers. This dog has
been to other trainers. Well, that's not criteria for anything. Okay? I mean, understand when trainers say certain things, well, been to other trainers, what does that mean? Well, what's the majority of trainers, what do they align with? This learning-based idea. So it's like a shell game. So understand, just because someone says been to other trainers, that's meaningless. 99% of all trainers approach training as a learning-based exercise. Influence doesn't align properly.
Has been lit up. Prong collars, e-collars. They have punished the hell out of this dog to get it.
So we talk about punishment, e-collars. Understand, it still plays into the superficial process, right? I mean, just think about it. I mean, go watch the other video I did on the, seminar with Larry Krohn and the remote collar, the disconnect. It shows it, okay? Finding the working level. So you get these trainers playing this shell game, to try to do what? Be popular, market.
Stop barking. No success whatsoever. And the woman has paid a fortune. Thousands.
She's paying more money here.
Of dollars to get to stop. Nothing. She wants to drive down here which is like, I don't know, 18, 20-hour drive, 24-hour drive, I don't know what it is. It's far for a private lesson to get the dog to stop barking. I tell her no many times. There's no way I can have you drive this far to do this, you know? But she insists. It's worth it to her if we could fix it. She said, can you fix it? I was like, yeah. She's like, are you going to use an e-collar to fix it? I said, no. Okay. Correcting most behaviors with an e-collar is rarely successful for most people because of the way it's done, all right?
The way it's done. Okay, I talk about this guy. It's understand the foundation. If the foundation isn't right, then, it's not going to line up anyway. Dogs are going to push through, right? Or it puts more stress on the dog, or a combination of both.
So I agree to let this lady drive down here. And she's right. This dog doesn't stop barking. Instead of trying to punish the dog, putting something on its neck and hammering the dog, this has been done multiple times.
So same thing here. So just from the statements from this training, tell there's confusion there. They go in the other way. This is where statements like, calls himself purely positive, balanced dog trainer. It's like, what the heck is that? It's just feeding into this confusion.
We start charging the dog to the clicker. The dog wasn't charged to the clicker before. She used verbal markers.
So charge the dog to the clicker. The association, right? A reward, treats, right? But again, think about the example I just used in terms of changing focus.
If I remember correctly, and the other trainers did. So we start.
Wawa's new
We start charging the dog to the clicker immediately. Doesn't take long, a few minutes. I would have loved to have done it for 10 days before, but we didn't. The dog starts getting the hint. Click, feed, click, feed, click, feed, click, feed. The dog starts getting it, right?
So just like bribery.
Then what happens when we stop, the dog starts barking. When the dog starts barking, we don't punish it. We don't tell it no. We don't do anything. We click, we reward.
Click and reward. Click, focus shifts, right? For something bribery, right? Reward. Click, reward, click, reward. So, and again, understand this whole thing about changing focus. Think about the chocolate bar, right? The chocolate, it's exactly this. But the thing is, again, I talk about this whole thing about control, fulfillment, comfort even. So dogs gaining control. Understand, control offers up the illusion of change through fulfillment, through gaining control, gaining comfort. That's why dogs can look, well behaved most of the day, floating around your home environment, even while gaining an incredible amount of control in the relationship through the owner. That's why petting and connecting through emotion starts to become a problem. And then you get blindsided because it's like a moment of aggression happens, like, where'd that come from? But then take this over to the parent example. A child can look well behaved. The selfish child can look well behaved as they're playing their video games or doing what they want to do. But think about what I just said about moments where parental influence is part of the equation, a demand. Pick up your toys because you're the parent. There's no exchange of currency through bribery, right? It's just like, just do it. And think about the kickback, right? The selfish child, then truth is revealed, right? But think about how change happens as well in terms of the parenting style, the authoritative parenting style versus permissive. So here, this plays into this whole permissive type of, dynamic. Understand when the dog starts to, control's manifesting. You'll see the barking start to happen at a very high level. And, go looking for a solution this way. There's no solution. I find it interesting too. It's like, say, I'd want to see, sure, let's see how great this actually works, by way of, again, the picture being put to the test properly, the core ingredients, in play. Because understand this is what happens. Dog owners create a world for their dog to fit into. And dogs can seem okay at a certain level. This is where that statement comes from. My dog is pretty good accept. Well, think about the pretty good part, the deceptive nature of control, of looking like a balanced dog, and the accept is the truth. In certain moments where dogs expressing control, right? So again, my encouragement is really consider when these narratives are being put out by confused and compromised dog trainers, the idea that they're aligned with lacks any depth. It's not in proper context. And then people are sold this idea of things. So it's just think about, like I said, the chocolate bar, right, coming out at the side, right? Change focus versus intercepting. So in terms of control manifest, yes, absolutely, influence needs to be intercepted, but in a proactive way. See, that's the problem too. If it's delayed, balanced dog training represents, being in a reactionary posture. It's like the parent who waits until the child's already in the toy aisle, pulling down the toys on the heads of the other kids before they jump in, right? Versus prior to even going to the, thinking about going to the department store, starting to be engaged, dialed in, consistent at all levels. So the role of influence needs to, again, be at a level of intercepting that dog's state of mind, but in a very proactive way. The stinking thinking part that is absent through balanced dog training, the being dialed in part of the relationship was absent in balanced dog training. Understand those themes are totally absent. And then they go to this thing about hammering the dog and stuff. And then they're not going even, considering the fact that, well, that doesn't line up because, the process itself, it doesn't take it to a level of a intervention, intentional interaction based method. That's not part of that at all. They just go to the other side of things, and then that's why they buy into all these, these narratives. This is why they give force-free trainers a ideological hall pass at the same time. You hear statements from them all the time say, well, force-free trainers are really good, and like, what is that? And then they're trying to call them out on a different video. Like, that doesn't make sense, because that's the point, right? They're compromised because they're part of the problem. They bought into this big lie in the dog training world that trains a learning-based exercise. It is not. And then, of course, all these narratives are all going to be part of it. So again, my encouragement, check out the content I put out. It's very specific. I talk about a process, what defines a process through a intentional interaction-based method approach, and the role of influence. How it lines up through that process by way of, again, being proactive in terms of intercepting the dog's state of mind. Thanks for watching.